For the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities.
Hello and welcome to episode 12 of That's a Shame. I am your host, one of two, boldly ignoring my second host there. I'm Isaac, and with me to my direct right
is Declan.
How are you, Declan?
I'm well. To Isaac's direct left is the open road.
Because where are we recording this from?
We're recording this from the car.
Coming at you live from Beaconsfield Road. Don't hunt me down, guys.
Just for context,
Yep.
It's 3:30 in the morning.
Good. Actually, 3:45 now.
Quarter to
Time
4.
marches on. And we've, I suppose it's fair to say, been banished into the outdoor realm
Very much so.
by the other inhabitants of my house. Let's call them my family, because, you know, I'm generous of spirit. Apparently, and I don't know if this is fair, I'd like to hear your take on this.
Yeah.
We're too loud for 3 o'clock.
Look, this is what we were being told, and it's not something I give any credence to myself. Although,
bother with it?
weirdly, it is something that I'm told by my own family sometimes.
Oh,
But I
so
think
there's
that
some
they're,
kind of similarity going on.
I think they're just equally wrong.
Yeah, maybe
Perhaps-
they're colluding.
Equally acoustic households.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's fair.
So, out of the goodness of our hearts,
Yep.
we've come to the car like absolute reprobates.
So just, paint a picture. We're sitting in the two front seats of the vehicle, parked, of course. We're not
Yep.
driving. We're not mental.
No,
That's
we
another show
are
for another time.
Drunk.
Well, not drunk. Just we've been drinking.
We've been drinking.
Yeah.
The keys are outside the vehicle.
Yeah, Declan had a good forethought that if the one policeman who patrols Kent comes along and is like, "Hello, lads,"
What are you up to?
and we're like, "Well, we're not driving." He's like, "Well, you are sitting in the two front seats of a car."
With the key. So we've left it inside.
I kicked it into the bin. Quick as you like. That's just the kind of friend I am. I won't let you drive drunk.
So if the car locks
Oh yeah, there might be a bit of a break when an alarm goes off.
and we move and the alarm goes off, it's just going to wait the street.
Yeah, you're just going to have to see what happens. We are outside my house by about 15 feet, and we didn't really test the soundproof quality of the car. So it may be that we're just as audible as before, and it's kind of sadder if we are, because at least we've tried.
Yeah.
There is also, I'm going to say this before, there's a car coming past. There it was. Don't know if you'll have heard that, but if you do, it's not going to be too often, but you're going to have to get over it.
We may also be about to be fought by a bunch of absolute criminals
One of
in a
them's
pirate
wearing
hat.
it's that tricorn hat that the very worst people wear. Hello, lads. No, they were not having
It
any
was
interest.
a Captain Morgan spiced rum.
I felt so
pirate
ignored
hat.
by them that I'm beginning to wonder if we haven't both died and entered into a sixth
different
sense
realm.
of the ghost man. But look, this is episode 12. You've just heard episode 11. I'm sure it was as fun for you as it was for us,
Yep.
if not more. Nice bit of art for episode 11.
Very frightening.
Available on shame.city.
Oh.
Why not check that out nice and early? It's going to be a hell of an episode. As you'll know from the last episode, we're keeping these a little shorter than our average thus far. It's going to top out at an hour,
Yeah.
fair to say. We've got all the usual features, which is to say our one feature, Hooked, where we tell you ever more frighteningly dull and mundane tales in the life of Tiffany, her random baby, her absent father, and her mother, who is always an indeterminate distance
And
away.
don't forget the mad old woman with a rock.
I love that girl. She's really added a lot to the story for me. I'm seeing Meryl Streep in that role.
Very much.
Give it 5 years. Yeah, there it is. I'd like to set the kind of context temporarily for the show.
Go ahead.
So the reason nominally for your visit this time...
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we should say as well, we're like about 15 yards away from where we recorded the first ever episode of That's a Shame.
I know. Looking at it from outside.
Yeah,
like
Romeo on
orphans
the
in a
balcony.
Victorian spinster's
What
tale
a
or
great
something.
shame. One day
Yes.
we'll be allowed back inside.
Well, I feel
We
like,
can
feel
pull ourselves up our bootstraps.
like the little match girl.
Our flames slowly ebbing into death. Tragic. What's the moral of the little match? Is it match girl or matchstick girl?
Matchstick girl,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know.
She sits in the alcove.
I think it's that the cold will kill you.
Don't go thinking that it won't, because it
Not
shall.
even fire.
It seems like the moral really is just don't go being poor.
Yeah.
Because you will die.
Which is the moral of most Victorian...
Most capitalism.
Yeah.
Tragic. Yes. So on a not dissimilar note, then you've come to visit for two reasons. One is that we're doing some writing stuff.
Yep.
And I suppose 1B is that it's just always nice to see you.
Oh, thanks.
Put it there. Oh, lovely moment there. Wish you could have seen it. And the second was that it's just been, now that it is the 11th, it's been 2 days since 3 days since the general election here in the United Kingdom, and we stayed up to watch the whole thing. It was quite a morning.
Well,
night into morning.
We say to watch the whole thing. We saw the very beginning.
Yep.
At the pub just down the road from you.
Yep.
Then we figured, where is a hub of youthful, politically engaged exuberance? That's university.
University campus.
Well, you live just down the road from one.
From 2.
Well, there
possibly
you have it.
3.
So we decided to head to the one we thought the biggest.
Yeah, because given that we're, I'm 24, you're what, 23? So we're not at an age at which if you think of going to a university campus, it's because you're a criminal.
Yeah.
We knew if it had been York, there would have been a bar open at this time.
Absolutely.
At least one bar. Because last general election, as we may have mentioned in the last show, we were up all night watching it in D-Bar. So we thought, we know what to do. We'll head up to the University of Kent campus, something like that.
Yeah.
Pop along for a little visit and see what they had to offer. And what did they have to offer?
What they had to offer was an absolutely labyrinthine campus, which nobody could possibly direct us around successfully.
We kept stopping people to ask for directions.
They were all very nice.
Very nice.
Useless.
Yeah. A lot of rabbits going around as well.
Several.
That was nice. That was a highlight for me.
And then we eventually meandered our way through the pouring rain to a bar to find that it was closed.
Although peopled, they were all just playing snooker and not drinking.
The bar was shut.
They had no element of the election in play.
No.
It was a really surprisingly quiet, because I don't think it's a small uni.
No.
I mean, I don't know what I'm basing that on. Just the fact that it's always full of students here.
Based on the fact that the map looked very big when we were looking for somewhere very specific.
Yeah. And I just don't know where everyone was.
No.
Maybe it's the youth of today. Maybe they were all too busy voting. Because there was, as we know, a 72% youth turnout this time.
Well done, guys. Well done.
Good on you. I'd like to think that we have no small part in that.
I'm thinking that by the next general election, neither of us count as that demographic.
Oh,
Isn't that depressing?
That's depressing. That's a shame.
And maybe neither will many of you.
Because we're all edging closer to death and irrelevance with every moment that passes. Good. Well, okay. We came back. Oh, no.
We got an Uber.
Yeah, we got an Uber.
No, we didn't.
No,
we tried to get an Uber.
Turns out Canterbury not quite ahead of the times, so much as so far behind the times that to Canterbury the times is just the broadest concept of drawing a sundial in the park and hoping to God that it's midday rather than midnight when you next wake up to feed. So we got a normal cab, an experience I've not had in quite some time.
Dreadful.
Hated the whole thing. Lovely driver though. Shout out to you.
Didn't vote.
Did he not? I don't remember
Undemocratic bastard. Not interested, he said.
Really? Democracy? Fuck off, mates. Get a grip. We cabbed our way down to a bar, rather, that was, it's called The Pound.
Which I didn't realise before we got there was pound as in colloquial term for prison.
Yeah. Did you think it was going to be just a very
currency-based?
Yeah, so it is, I think. It's inside, the old walls of Canterbury, Westgate or something it's called. And it is we were just drinking in a giant interrogation room.
Yeah, it was
just
genuinely...
two of us.
It was like a cross between Ashes to Ashes and Twin Peaks.
Yeah, it was. It had that red light neon vibe that, it had a dangerous element to it.
Yeah.
Luckily, as soon as I arrived, I went to ask at the bar what the score was. Re-election. Nah, not bothering with that.
Not a single.
They didn't even have one TV.
Why is Canterbury so politically disparate? Disconnected.
Yeah, I don't know really, because as we'll know now that the results have all been called as of today, I think, or yesterday. Now that we're recording, but yeah, Canterbury went for the first time in Let me see what the figure is here. 18,000 years. Labour rather than Conservative. Congratulations to Rosie Duffield.
Well done.
Shout out. If you'd like to come on the show, Rosie, that's tas@shame.city. Drop us a line. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
See if we can get you on the feature. And that was nice. That was a good moment because we were back home to watch that happen.
Yes, thankfully we were. I mean, although we did stay out until it shut.
I do not remember leaving the Pound.
Do you not?
No, it's not because I was that drunk. It's because, as you know, I don't pay attention to a lot of stuff that happens.
No, almost
if it's like boring logistical detail, then I'll probably forget it. It's not even that I'll forget it; it's that I've never taken it in.
Isaac's has one of those disk cleanup processes running in his brain always.
I have it scheduled every 12 seconds.
Anything that isn't necessary detail to his own survival, it's just wiped.
And indeed flourish.
Wiped from the memory entirely.
It's a powerful process that I've been perfecting.
He doesn't remember getting in the car, which is a bad sign for me if any policeman stops us.
Yeah, we were just driving somewhere off. Fuck! The key's in the bin! I'm so sorry. I'll take the points on my provisional licence. What do you mean it doesn't work like that? I'm pretty sure my provisional licence
Drunken
expired.
what?
Driving under the witch? Wow. Okay. Yeah, no, I don't remember that. But then we came home, we had McDonald's.
Oh,
one of us spilled something
great.
on the living room floor. Apparently, I was told that afterwards.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was me.
Okay. There you
Whilst
go.
handing over nuggets to you, I kicked a little stubby.
Oh, that's been done. Kick to stubby is one of the worst things I've ever heard. Hashtag kick that stubby.
Our Brian's only got a kick to stubby,
He
isn't
won't be having any more kids, will he? Not for another decade or so. Everybody pray for him on the equinox, love. But yeah, we stayed up till about 8, I'd say.
Yeah, it was about 8:30, I think.
And the thing about staying up till the early hours, as we are doing now, in June, is that it makes no difference whether you go to bed at, what time is it now? At 4 to midday. It's basically the same amount
brightness.
of blaring, anti-socially bright.
I mean, we haven't actually done so yet, but I'll take a picture of us.
Oh yeah, we should.
For
yeah,
this,
but
I'll make sure that I get the horizon in there.
It's actually coming up to sunrise,
just so that you can literally see that it is daytime.
Horrid.
So, get one of you. There we go. Wow, you look like a sex offender.
I did a weird pose. I don't know what came over you. Can I see it?
No.
Oh, good. That'll be on the website.
See it when it's on the Twitter.
Shame.city @that's a shamecast, respectively. But yeah, the election. What's your hot take? There are a few things. Let's break it down into a few topics. Sorry to just cut you off before I even.
Don't worry.
I heard you inhale as if about to answer, and stole the breath away from you. So I suppose the reaction and talk thereabout splits into like the actual election, and given that we're not political pundits, I suppose that's not that interesting.
No.
I'd like to dig deep into the Facebook scene
Definitely
during the election, so maybe we start with that.
Okay. Well, I mean, there are inevitable stages to the Facebook
like the
scene.
stages of grief.
Election called. Mm-hmm. Everyone's got a take.
Immediate.
All of them shit.
Ill thought out at best.
People are quick to share the news and share their thoughts. Mm-hmm. What are the motivations? What are the potential outcomes? Who's going to win? Who are they supporting?
Yeah.
Who to them is scum? And no matter who they are, what wing they're on, who they're supporting, they're inevitably wrong. In some instance, they've just fucked it up. Mm-hmm. Because something that we readily admit ourselves, obviously to a lesser extent, is that
key caveat.
Most people just simply don't know enough to have a take that is in any way influential.
Yeah. It's only when you do listen to the dangerously over-informed opinions of people who do know what they're talking about that you realise, I don't know, after watching like a Hitchens speech or reading that Norman Finkelstein book, there are issues about which I would never again feel qualified to offer so much as the gesture, a dream of an opinion.
I wouldn't give a facial expression.
I wouldn't even blink if someone raised it for fear that I was misrepresented, because there is a basis of fact and research and thought that simply no one I know has engaged with.
I don't know if you remember, from that election night, but we spent a good half an hour talking about this very trait in relation to Mr. Noam Chomsky.
Oh, I do remember.
And just to the fact that, like, I don't know what Noam's opinion is on anything. I don't know if at this state, if you asked me and he separately, if I would agree with him on everything. And I don't know if even after he told me, whether emotionally I would agree with him. But I'd never tell him he was wrong.
No, because the thing is, he's not. The thing is, he just knows more than any other person. His brain is made out of old trees. He is the mind of the forest.
He has known everyone. If there's anything that's ever been put into text, he's read it in probably 7 or 8 languages.
And probably about 4 drafts before it came to be published in the first place. Oh, who was it? Who sent it to me?
And I told them, I said.
I read through it. It was terrible work. I hated it. It's just a brand of intellect that is so fierce. And I guess we can't hold ourselves by that standard.
No.
Especially if we pluralise words that should obviously be singular.
Good start.
Yes.
You're ready to combat Noam Chomsky, inventor of linguistics, with your avant-garde plurals.
I'm going to just redefine your field now. It's a shame, I suppose, that these people exist in the same sphere, because at least before, like a decade ago, really, to read something Noam Chomsky had written required a lot more effort than hearing the opinion of your friends. But now both of those things are on Facebook.
Yep.
Because Noam videos go viral.
Yep.
Noam videos. That would be a horrible genre of little Amelie creeps pigeoning their way around gardens. And so it can be the case that you're scrolling through news articles, like someone's op-ed that is probably like far more well informed than average.
The person who's sharing it.
And then you read a status about how, fucking elections, like what's the point of them, mate? They're all the same party anyway. Blue, red, it's just a distraction from loving each other. Fuck off, it's not. You're wrong. You need to stop.
And obviously with that comes its own meme culture, which some of it, very good. Very entertaining. Some of it shows why not everyone should be allowed access to the same tools.
Even if those tools are concepts as basic as image and text. At least half of them ought to be rationed away behind closed doors.
Because I think the trouble is that because it's a period in which genuine comedy thrives and is shared so often, and the same with, political and intellectual opinion, that everybody decides that now's their chance to do it, either for the Facebook karma, or whether it's just because they feel invigorated to do so. And I've no problem in theory with people taking an active role in their democracy in that sense.
Yeah, let everyone have a taste.
But, when you have people like Frankie Boyle sharing his thoughts, sharing his tweets on a subject matter, I don't need Hank from down the road to be putting out his question time live tweeting.
Yeah. There is definitely a discrepancy.
Anyone who is not a celebrity who says, I'm going to live tweet this, should be
ended. Don't care about that. That should be like an auto phrase that Twitter scans to delete your account.
Because I can just about tolerate your thoughts and opinions if they're every day or so.
Now you're saying you don't mean me, of course.
No, of course not. No, yours in the general. Yours in one. Yeah, okay. Ones. But if they're going to be polluting my time feed with their ill-informed... It's a mixture.
Wow.
Just let it go.
Moving on.
With their ill-informed, unfunny drivel, then...
what a shame that is.
I'm going to have to unfriend you, both in the cyber, as Mr. Trump would like to say, and physically.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting parallel between something we discussed in our stand-up episode, which was episode
4.
Good knowledge. Hope that's right.
It is.
About how both humour and politics are things that people think they know more about than they do, and think are ineffably personal rather than not that. Which, given
good point.
Given that they aren't, given that there is an objectivity to like how many people are in poverty, like these are things we can measure. One sense that like, but they're probably, I trust Mrs. May, like she's doing her best. I trust her to ensure the best for our country. And you're like, well, what do you think about this?
Have you looked at any of the facts about it?
Don't worry about that. What, 400,000 more children in poverty? Nah, don't think so. And it's odd that there are only a few topics where people will privilege knowingly and kind of celebratorily. That's a word. Thanks, Noam.
Noam is literally
crying.
He's writing a letter to someone to have us shut down.
Will privilege their own opinions above fact as if they are better. It's not like by accident. It's that's what's good. It's like, well, we all have different opinions. It's like what we do, but some of them are wrong.
But also,
the great thing.
There are facts involved as well.
Yeah.
There can be both, and your opinion can be nullified by fact.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed to have it, I suppose.
Just means you're an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm afraid. What do we think about the election results?
For
those who don't know, it's a fairly complicated and still, as of yet, not quite confirmed permanently, necessarily, arrangement in which, without getting too boring, we've got a hung parliament, no party won an absolute majority of seats in Commons. So the Conservatives, who are the largest party, have sought a fragile, problematic alliance with the DUP, which is a party
which doesn't believe in evolution, doesn't believe in women's rights, doesn't believe in LGBT rights.
No, their immediate concern, as we saw in the news today, was to lower what was it exactly? It was
it was
the abortion
about about timings for abortions.
Basically, they want all of that gone. I saw a lovely quote from one of the sitting members from just a few years ago, talking about how the Earth was obviously 4,000 years old.
Yep.
Good use of the word obviously.
Yeah.
Ironic, not knowingly.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of vibe that has really startled the electorate in some places. There's not a lot to be...
Particularly given their very strong links to ongoing terrorism.
Yeah.
In the face of their 2-year campaign against Mr. Corbyn for brief association with past terrorism.
For once, using inclusive language to say the word friends in an obviously gestural sense, in a formal setting.
Because he didn't get up in front of Hamas to give a speech to them and say, all right, cunts.
Fucking what?
You ready? You want some?
Dreadful. Good night for Labour in a way.
Yeah, you can't move away from the fact that it is objectively a loss.
Yeah.
But it is, in its own sense, a victory, given how preposterously far behind they were in the polls.
And there's also a potential that by partnering with an even further right party, the whole concept will come crumbling down for the Tories of success.
It's and there were some, like we said, some really key and startling Kensington,
richest county in constituency in the country. It would be like...
It took them until...
about 1 minute ago.
7 o'clock.
We just got a telegram. Someone came and knocked on the window, shouted Kensington. Yeah, it's been a shake-up.
Yeah, Canterbury, one of them.
Exactly.
Canterbury was right at the top of the old swingometer.
Yeah, unexpected.
Rayleigh and Wickford stayed Conservative.
Oh, you surprised me.
No, it seems that one person who wrote War Pig on Mark Francois's poster didn't quite get what they wanted.
Damn.
Didn't quite get the public reception they were hoping for.
Who'd have thought?
But there you go. Mark Francois. If there's a civil right, he's voted against it.
If you want to come on the show and be berated, Mark, tas@shame.city. I think let's get back into the Facebook thing because there is a lot to say on it. And one of the things that we've only really talked about pre-election.
Yeah, we only speak about the early
theme
stages.
that I'd like to pull as the thing that I find most reprehensible and unforgivable and just deeply and viscerally irritating to read are not the people who are necessarily commenting with an opinion about, like, oh, I hope the Tories win, I hope Labour does well, or I hope the Lib Dems are decimated or whatever, which are all opinions that, you know, there are arguments for all of them.
Yeah.
Better or worse.
Yeah.
I'm going to say worse for 2 out of 3. It's the people who know that that's coming. So there's a level of intelligence, I think, or a level of insight, which must be like the sweet spot between being
too stupid to appreciate it.
Yeah.
And smart enough to...
Or at least perceiving of yourself that you're above pure commentary.
Yeah.
It's a cowardice, I think, fundamentally.
Definitely.
It's someone who's too afraid to share their own opinion. So instead is going to attack, usually through the passive-aggressive meta commentary.
The upside-down smiley face.
That's the one. I do love that emoji, though. One of my faves. To attack the whole concept of engagement or of, you know, having an opinion. So in the pre-election phase, these are the people who, upon hearing that an election has been called, rather than posting about like, oh, here we go again, like lots of campaigning incoming, or wonder who I'll be voting for this time, or like immediately changing your profile picture to I'm voting Labour or whatever.
Yeah.
These would be the people who are like, oh, another 38 days of insufferable, everyone's a pundit, have a go hero politicians light on my Facebook, can't wait, ... feeling dreadful or something. And it's that kind of abstraction from dealing with the serious and unignorably like impactful problem that is democracy.
And it's as well that being annoyed that everyone on your Facebook is going to be considering themselves a pundit is, as we've expressed here, a fine thought to have.
Yeah.
But if your only vocal contribution is to be annoyed that people take it seriously,
go fuck yourself.
Literally.
I think is the answer.
It is that naive and, well, it's not even naive, it's worse than that, isn't it?
It's knowing, ignorant. It's a lack of naivety. I think it's thinking that you have an insight which everyone else, because who has not thought, God, it's a bit tiring that everyone has to have a shout about it. But that's the point of politics. What's the alternative? No one gets to talk about it.
Well, with Theresa May's new internet regulations,
if you like the internet, you'll love not the Tories. You probably won't be allowed to get our podcast for much longer.
Very much.
This is going to be top of the list to be shot down. Especially, as you pointed out, sitting in the front of this car with a microphone perched on the dashboard.
We do look like we're in some sort of authoritarian state of taking the show on the road so that we don't get caught because they've bugged the rules.
we can't stop.
Before we came out, we did some noises to pretend like we were going to sleep.
I've set up a loop, like Ferris Bueller. If anyone knocks on the door, a big broomstick sits up in my bed and says, "Go away, Mum.
I'm loving the Tories."
We are the 2017 pirate radio.
Oh my God, we are
driving our way around life, shouting nonsense into the void, and hoping that the void tweets back at That's a Shamecast Void. If you're listening, we'd love to hear from you. So yeah, that's the pre-phase, is this knowing, bemoaning of the sheer fact that everyone's going to want to engage. I hate also with it's difficult for me to hate these people too much because most of them are people I'm friends with now, but people who will then like message me about like, God, did you see her status? Did you see his post about the election? If one more person says I shouldn't vote Tory, then I might just do it. I I understand the impulse, but I think you've got to take yourself more seriously than that as a human. I think you've got to be able to put that by the wayside and just get a grip. And Facebook has provided us with, as we know, the unfollow.
Yep, unfollow.
See less like this.
Unfollow so that you don't have to seem petty enough that you've unfriended them, but you don't ever have to see anything they say ever again.
Middle ground.
Yeah,
thanks, Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg, send us a tweet. And it's really in the final days of the election process,
and certainly in the immediate aftermath.
Yeah, it's the like 3 days, the day before, the day of, the day after. I think the worst comes to the fore, and it begins for me. There are kind of two bookends to this process, which I would like to throw out. And I know we both talked about them. We've talked about specific instances that we will not mention.
No.
For fear of retribution.
Friends and siblings of friends and siblings.
Dreadful. You could probably narrow it down from that, really.
Oh, well, I'm sure.
Don't bother doing that. So there's the first one is the post. It's a kind of passive aggression, I suppose, masked behind a kind of friendly, bubbly optimism that's like, goodness, can't wait for 2 days' time when everyone gets off their horses of division, just to use an image that no one's ever brought up before because it means nothing. When everyone gets off their big pedestals and stops throwing fruit at each other and realises that, come on, guys, we're all just one. You know, we're all trying our best. We can't attack people for their opinions, and it will be great after the election when everyone just goes back to posting pictures of food. To specifically quote from a post that has annoyed me. Look, that's all right. It did annoy me. It's an annoying post.
Yeah.
What do we think about that sentiment? Not that post in particular, but the sentiment broadly, because I saw it in about like 25 posts.
Yeah. It propagates something that we mentioned earlier, this attitude that some people take, which is that the election, that politics in general, but specifically that vote, is just like a little game.
Yeah.
Like it's just a fun little parlour game that you play when you've had a drink at home.
It's like Monopoly Democracy Edition.
Where, you have all your opinions and you're shouting, and then you put your little X in a box, and then that's it until 5 years' time, or 2 years' time, or maybe September, when we have the next election. And then you can bring all that up again. But once it's not directly relevant, and I wonder if it is a symptom of living in a representative democracy where democracy means you have one vote every half a decade.
Yeah.
And beyond that, your input is decidedly minimal.
And even then, your input is decidedly minimal.
Well, yeah, exactly.
First past the post.
But it neglects the fact that this literally affects people's lives. And for some people means that, if the result goes one way, they will live.
Yeah.
And if it goes the other way, there's a very good chance that they will die. Well, I mean, you were talking about the paper itself from the DWP.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a really interesting thing that someone links to in a blog post. Or the most interesting insight I find is little blogs people have sourced. There's a kind of blogger out there who is the most meticulous sourcer of statements.
Yeah.
And so you'll read these posts and be like, God, that can't be true. And then at the bottom there are 85 footnotes. You're like, okay, well, I'll see if the first 10 are true.
Yeah.
And then just assume the rest. You take like a random sample. Yeah. And one of these statements was about how it was much on the same theme, really, about how it's not a one-day event, and only from a position of extreme privilege can you be so fucking stupid as to condemn people who are, of course, going to be fucked off and are going to like you less if you vote for a party which harms them and their family and people they've known growing up in a material, measurable way. And one of the links was to a Department of Work and Pensions study published, I think, last year, that was just about their getting people back into work program, where they assess you for if you're fit to work.
Yep.
They have this, I don't know if you've seen the Ken Loach, Daniel Blake.
Yep.
It's that whole, it's what the whole film is about. It's, you go through these tests that are more or less superficial, about like quite vague medical things, and it's less that they're superficial, it's more that they're tailored to absolutely this imaginary average person for whom they apply in that most disgustingly bureaucratic fashion. And you go through these tests and a computer returns, go back to work, mate, or nah, he's about to die. Turns out that computer's only been fucking lying to everyone, because by their own admission, the stripping away of disability benefits in order to push people back into work prematurely has led to the actual deaths within 6 weeks of being sent back to work of thousands of people in the last, like, I think it was 6 years or something. It might have been even fewer.
Now, was that on the BBC that you found that?
Oh, the BBC, you say? That beacon of non-bias Laura Kuenssberg, burn in hell, tragedy. Interestingly not. Someone just gave us such a weird
such
look.
A strange
That's
look.
actually the first one we've had, though, because about maybe 20 people have walked past.
And I mean, let's be honest, that person
Looks
is in
more mouth than we
flip-flops at 4 a.m.
in about 1 degree of heat. Actually, no, it's really warm.
Actually 16 degrees C.
Goodness. Bit of weather update for you there, guys. Don't say we don't give you the facts on That's a Shame.
Straight from deaths by disability policy
to the weather.
To the weather.
It's basically how the news normally plays out,
yeah.
but with less gravitas. Going back to the Facebook thing, the people who are so comfortable that they can't envisage a world in which it's okay to be fucked off, not just at the world or the state of democracy or the electorate in a broad impersonal sense, but to be directly fucked off with someone who I know as a friend who has voted to harm me, and I'm using me in the loose sense because I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Straight white men.
Oh, life is easier when you're less privileged, guys.
We said from a car.
Doing a podcast, it's the most middle-class medium of all time. But yeah, the lack of imagination, I think, it's exactly the reason that I don't believe in the whole, like, conservatives and Theresa May in particular are evil argument, because I think she's just a product of a multitudinal extension of that same inability to imagine a life outside your own circumstances. Mm-hmm. Where if people who are like at least Facebook friends with people from different backgrounds, with different wealths and social classes, someone who's like doing a job rather than having gone to university at 16 or something, if you're friends with those people and you still can't empathize, or even if you don't want to care, if you can't intellectually transfer your own consciousness onto, it must be pretty shit if you suddenly don't get any money for doing that job. It must be a bit shit if your wage hasn't gone up in 1,000 years, and if your real-term wage increase is joint worst with Greece because their economy collapsed.
That used to exist.
Rather than the voluntary theft of money by an austerity-driven bullshit, then I question your commitment to humanity, really. And I certainly question whether you should be allowed to post that in a Facebook status and end it with a fucking smiley face emoji and pretend everything's fun.
Because, like you say, it's not this argument that people who think differently are necessarily evil. And I mean, we both have friends and indeed family who vote differently. And it's not that you can't get on with people like that you can't like them or love them. But it is that whilst doing that, because the payoff comes both ways, because I've seen people on my timeline sharing things that are like, oh, you vote that way, I vote this way, let's just go and have a drink, it's right. And you're like, that's fine, as long as it comes with the payoff that also I'm allowed to be angry that you've supported a party that the UN have intervened to say is going against human rights.
It's a shame, the old human rights. But don't worry, we won't be going against them for long, because we're getting rid of them, boys.
The DUP. It's, the sort of intervention from the UN that you expect them to have for, I don't know, say South Sudan, but not an ostensibly first world
Yeah.
progressive nation like ours.
It is odd, the ability to distance oneself from their politics, and it's something that I've never agreed with. I remember reading, like, when I was doing work experience, which is year 10, and I did work experience in a court, because I think I had a vague sense that I wanted to go into law at the time, about, it was this pamphlet about how to network or something wanky. I think it had a slightly more legal bent. It was about, like, how to network with law people.
Oh, yeah. That was
Have you read it as well?
Was that the law bent at the end
Yes,
there?
that was it. I subtly threw that in. Don't know if you noticed. And one of the things, it had this horribly contrived acronym for a list of topics that you must never broach when meeting someone for the first time, or when even, I think it was just when in any social situation, really.
Right.
So it was like if you're at a party and you're meeting a firm, or if you're like at an interview and you're talking to other candidates, there are certain things you should never, ever discuss. And they were, I won't remember all of them, but it was, as you would expect, it was things like religion, politics, money, like how much you earn, things like that. And I just remember thinking, like, I could understand the religion one more, because I think people in this country, at least, feel, rightly or wrongly, and I myself lean towards the former, slightly ashamed of talking about a devoted religious belief in public. And I don't mean that cruelly. I just mean that we don't have a very high tolerance for public discourse of something as private as, yeah, by the way, I think all the gays are fucking wrong.
Yeah.
They're going to hell.
And they're off.
And I think that's for the best. Like, I don't think religion's an inherently bad thing in every sense. And maybe we get into that in another episode, because that's another giant
another
topic.
to approach, yeah.
But yeah, so I can understand that one a bit. The politics one, though, is just so strange, because what is politics if not just, as I posted the other day, rather contravening everything we've discussed about getting involved in politics.
Oh no, we're both guilty of it.
If not the aggregate of your character. Like, it's not just you tick a box or put an X in a box. It's you say, what are my values? Like, who am I as a person? What do I prioritize, and what do I care about? What do I think other people deserve is, I think, the key question to anyone who's lucky enough to not be directly impacted by things like cuts to welfare. You have to ask yourself questions about what other people's lives, in theory, even if you're never going to meet them, mean to you. And if your answer is, then I think on some level you're either wrong or bad. And there's no getting away from that. I can forgive it if you're also hilarious and buy me a drink. Like, I can forgive it on a social level.
Yeah.
But I could never, like, go into a serious friendship with someone for whom their entire character and worldview was so outlandishly different.
It's just like, I think it's partly a problem that both sides have, in essence, in that one of the kind of rallying cries of the left, which I say in the broadest, loosest sense possible, is that it's important to understand and empathise with others' lives, circumstances, the way that they've either been raised, the experience they've had of the world. And I do think that there are people on the left who forget that when thinking about their own politics, and are incapable of trying to think about why somebody might vote differently to them. Because there are reasons why, both intellectual and, I think, environmental. And so it's not the case, certainly for me, that I believe people to be inherently cruel if they vote right. I used to consider myself, as we know, a right-leaning person, a conservative supporter, if not voter, until 2 years ago myself. And I think that there is a necessity, certainly if you're ever hoping to change anyone's perspective, of attempting to understand why that might be. Because, as we've said, yelling at someone that they're a racist,
yeah, it's not necessarily the most effective,
hasn't ever won anyone over. You've every right to do so if it's the case, but it's not going to change their mind. Whereas there are ways, I think, that I've experienced myself of addressing issues where that is more likely to. Because, I mean, if you've grown up with nothing, even if it is, ironically under the rule of a party that you support, if you've grown up with nothing and grown up having to work hard, work shit jobs for shit money your whole life, and you've done that for others, to put food on the table or to bring in money to pay for something for other people, to hear that there's a party that wants to give everyone that even if they haven't put in the work, I can 100% feel why that would make you angry and why you'd feel like people don't deserve that.
Yeah.
And, again, it's not an experience, thankfully, that I've had to have. I'm not in a position where I have to feel that kind of sting there. But there are people who are in that situation. And I understand, therefore, why it's hard to kind of let go of that feeling. Mm-hmm. But simultaneously, there is a responsibility on people who feel that way to look at it from another perspective as well, as in the whole system that's being proposed by the left is that you wouldn't have had to to do that.
It's difficult, I suppose, because it's quite a, especially in the Trump election, we heard a lot of, like, whenever anyone got angry, a comment from, like, high up people, not just some internet troll, but like a serious pundit would be, it's people like you, outrage merchants, this is why Trump was elected. And I think in a way the left has there are two problems, I think, with it. One is that the distinction between, like, personal and systemic relations between politics and people. And I don't feel personally, as someone who's far left and has been for, like, as long as I've been politically aware, I don't feel that it's my job to convince people, and to, as much as I want to empathise with people, it's much more in theory than on an individual basis. So it makes me a dick in a way, I suppose, but it's also not that bad, because if that were in place, then everyone would be a lot better off. I don't feel like I have to be nice to people whose opinions I find reprehensible, but at the same time I acknowledge that successful politics would be for whichever was the most prominent leftist party to put across a very cogent, calm argument that starts from a place of understanding, and that says, yeah, I get why you feel that way. And I mean, I do get why people feel that way. I just don't feel that I have to put in the work to lead them across. And I don't, because I'm not a politician.
No. And if people aren't willing to put in the work on their end either, there's no point anyway, is there?
Because there's also this research, more or less spurious, I would suggest increasingly less, on the correlation between at least education level of attainment and one's politics, which suggests that, to put it bluntly, if you're voting right wing, you're more likely to be less educated than if you're voting left. And of course, the right wing answer to that is that universities are establishments set up to kind of indoctrinate people in a state subsidized environment to get them all to vote for, like, pointless gender studies. That's not me saying it's pointless. That was this imaginary person. Courses and all that stuff. But if we take as the basis that a lot of it mirrors the personal experience I have of a lot of people who have read a book and then be like, oh yeah, maybe I won't just hate black people now. Here's an idea. I think the left has incumbent on it a kind of unwinnable task where not only does it have to advance its own platform, it also always has to persuade more, because there's this great Stuart Lee article that I talk about constantly, which is called Where Are All the Right-Wing Stand-Ups? And his essential thesis is that, whether it's twofold. First of all, the literal answer is that right-wing stand-up doesn't work as frequently in our society because comedy is about punching down, and it's not funny if you're... It's about punching up. Sorry, I retract that, lads. It's about attacking the big guy, and it's not funny to just bully someone who's in a losing position. from which he extrapolates the broader semi-alarmist, but also not necessarily incorrect thesis that the right is, he says the right will always win, and that like society will crumble, we'll burn all the fossil fuels until we have no ozone and the sun consumes us all. And I mean, he's being, exaggerating, but
hyperbolic.
Yeah, I think the way I take it is that it's a default state, and it is, like, you see it in all kinds of societies. If stuff goes to shit, then you look after the 3 nearest people to you, and everyone else can go fuck themselves, because who's got the time? Like, if there's not enough food, we need to look after people nearby. You see it, I suppose, I don't know. There are arguments against it, but there's also an essential tribalism that is like evolutionarily supported.
Yeah.
That even undermines the fundamentally like social element of the human animal. And so if that's the case, and if we default to the right in any scenario that triggers us, to use a somewhat loaded word, then surely it's not the job of the left wing to not only put forward platforms that make sense, but to also win everyone who is scared around. Like, it just seems like a losing battle. It seems like too much to take on.
It's especially the case, I mean, it feels like a cliche point, but cliche probably in the sense that it's just very true.
Yeah.
When you do have a mainstream media machine that is entirely designed to convince people that such thought is alarmist.
Yeah.
And then equally, with the other hand, to alarm people of entirely the wrong things. That you have, if, every newspaper and most news outlets every day are telling you that Jeremy Corbyn will bring a coalition of chaos, or that maybe the climate change agreements are fucking you over slightly. I mean, you have to use more bins than you might.
Bananas. What are we doing with them?
They're telling you that there are, swarms, to use their own words, of immigrants coming across the border when there aren't necessarily. Or if they're...
And the ones that are have been proven so many times
in
to be
every single study,
the economy,
where the actual problems are deflected.
Yeah.
Where, like, even with things that are an issue, because it would be wrong to suggest that immigration hasn't affected anyone negatively, I think. Certainly, at least on a personal level. But to say that perhaps there's been exactly no focus by any government in the last, century on pushing integration, where instead it's, well, if immigration is going to happen, funnel these people into the poorest area of the country and see what happens. Oh, look, it turns out what happens is they have to fight for the cheapest job, so everyone hates each other. Where instead you can just talk about numbers.
Yeah.
And not worry about what happens afterwards, where people's focus is, well, are we having an open door? Are we having freedom of movement?
Managed, that was the buzzword in the last few days.
Where it's not about that, it's about what happens once people are here. They are statistically proven by a near infinite number of studies
it's not even the number that matter, it's that there are no studies disproving. No studies with a shred of evidence against the conclusion of multiple prestigious institutions.
That immigration is an economic boon to the country, that it helps you, that even beyond economics, that immigrants are propping up the infrastructure that helps to keep you alive and safe.
Yeah, and contribute in a major way to culture at large.
Yeah. That to sort of like forget all that. So not just forget it all,
ignore that
to never have mentioned it and never hope to mention it, and instead to say, we're going to shift this to, here's a picture of 40 people on a dinghy.
Oh, watch out.
Or 3 people getting off the back of a lorry. They're everywhere. Yeah. You can't stop them.
Would have been 45, but 5 of them drowned on the way.
Yeah, exactly. To say, oh, look, haven't you noticed that there are more takeaways in your area?
What could it mean? Coming for your food. They're infecting your very dinner.
By making it for you. What's
it more interesting.
Again, the Stuart Lee line of coming over here, inventing us a national cuisine.
Oh, it makes me so angry.
It's just, But again, if you it's a perfect system though, because if you are someone who is working class, who's having to work either one job all day every day, and when you're not doing that, raising your family, doing all this, or if beyond that you're working multiple jobs, if you're too tired,
don't have the time,
or the effort or the bother, if you don't want to, because you're involved in a system that keeps you that busy just to stay alive, then why would you bother reading a study? When would you have the time? And so I can again 100% see that if that was all I was getting was a constant message that this is ruining my life, then I would probably believe it was ruining my life. And it's sad that things are set up that way.
It is sad, and we don't have any answers immediately.
Sorry, in case you were hoping for some for the last 55
conclusion.
Minutes, there is no conclusion.
I'd like to address one more thing before we go, because we should wrap up presently.
Okay.
And that is a post I saw on one of our podcast groups today. And as you know, we have a love-hate relationship.
I think I was going to bring this up, but go on.
Well, it's much like the Facebook phenomenon we've been talking about
it's the same one.
Yeah, is it?
Yep.
Of the separation of person and politics, as if they aren't one the manifestation of the other. And it was a post that said something, you may remember it better than I do. It was a question, I think, about like pet peeves or something in podcasts. And it was like, oh, do you have anything that you really dislike?
No, it was like, don't know about you guys.
Oh, was it even as wanky as that?
Yeah, don't know about you guys.
Fucking idiot.
Which is always phrased so that they think, oh, everyone's going to agree with this.
Yeah, don't know about you guys, but here's a statement that everyone's going to love.
Yeah.
And the statement
I'll probably get shot down for this, but...
Yeah, it's that kind of horrid idiot vibe. He was basically making the point that podcasts which are not expressly political, talking about politics, is just a giant turn off, because politics is everywhere these days, guys. Like, we never stop hearing about Trump, this, Clinton, that, Corbyn, what, May, where, and to that person I'd like to extend a personal
Farron,
go
who?
Fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Because look, I'm not saying we've got answers. All I'm saying is that we've got an opinion that you've chosen to listen to for the last hour or so,
and indeed possibly for the last 15 hours or so.
And we're not saying it's better than anyone else's, but why would hearing more people's opinions be a bad thing? What sort of idiot are you that you think you live on an intellectual island where you have to tune in? And the very act of choosing which opinions to draw from on a basis of like qualitative rather than, oh, this person's got a degree in knowledge. Principles.
Is that what you, bachelor's in BA in knowledge?
They spell it with an N. It's ironic, degree. But just the fact that you'd be like, oh, God, how dare they? Because a podcast I listen to, The Morning Stream by Scott Johnson, check it out. He's interesting politics, kind of libertarian bent, so not someone I really agree with on a lot. But I understand he comes from a good place, and I think we'd agree on more than we disagreed on. But whenever he mentions, quite rightly, some of the mentalness of Trump, people email him into oblivion saying, how dare you bring up the most important world event affecting our lives at the moment. It's just so strange.
So what we're saying is, in spite of our 50-minute rant, that people...
Inebriated rant, let us say.
That people shouldn't use their public platforms to vent their ill-informed opinions on political events. We firmly stand by our right to use this platform to propagate our own potentially more informed.
At least we're considering they're taking an overview of other people's opinions. So if that doesn't make us better than them, I don't know what does.
Goodness knows what we can do to please you bastards.
But like Declan says, look, posting your opinion everywhere is obviously going to fuck a lot of people off. We accept that.
Especially if I'm sure people will, stupid.
Yeah, and I'm sure people will get to this episode and be like, these guys are cunts. I won't be listening again. Fair enough. It was lovely to have you.
I think some of them are my family.
I'm very sorry. I didn't mean any of it. I'm drunk. But look, we defend in that probably misattributed to Voltaire fashion your right to have your opinion, no matter how ill-informed. Let's all just talk about it a bit more without getting too angry. Let's just have a chat. That's what I'd like to say.
That's the opinion we lampooned earlier. And that's the one we'll end on.
We're not saying we're not hypocritical.
Oh, absolutely not. We're very clear. We
discussed this off air, don't we?
Yeah, we have a hypocritical attitude to hypocrisy, I think.
Because quite often we'll be like, there'll be a bit where we're talking about something and we'll be like, of course, we're not saying this from a position of, we're not geniuses. And then off air we'll be like,
we were so right.
Were definitely on the fucking money there, lad. Oh. But this has been episode 12.
Coming to you live from a frosted
car. It's so warm. I'm somehow very warm, but also aware that if I touch the window, it's freezing.
Yep.
It's like being in a tent when it rains. Horrible, I mean.
That's the one.
I think we should forego Hooked.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not. Maybe we'll make this the longer one because it's a big topic, the general election. I think we might want to end
on a lighter note. Yeah.
So, guys, Declan, why don't you recap the story so far?
I couldn't possibly. That would imply that there's been any followable narrative. I've opened Shazam instead. So let's go to that.
Fun app.
The Shazam function.
Basically, we left off with okay, there's a woman outside with a rock, of course.
Yep.
Mum, ever the pragmatist, tells her the windows will hold. It would take a lot of force to break them. Maybe the kind of force that would come from smashing with a rock, Mum.
Yeah. Mum, interestingly, refers to herself as Mummy and says Mummy's coming home soon.
Oh, that was a creepy bit, wasn't it?
I think that's potentially frightening. Then there's no one outside.
In that
Keep the
classic
door
story
locked.
style.
Don't see her, but her car's still here.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go from there.
Don't see her, but her car's still here. Okay.
Yeah. So
here we are, episode 12, Hooked.
Here we go.
Watch us change into character now in this audible medium.
I don't see her, but her car is still here.
That was quite the transformation.
How did you know who it was? Who is she, Mum?
Someone your father knows. I knew nothing of her until recently.
I don't understand. What are you telling me?
Actually, it's what aren't you telling me? Which is such a bizarre question.
What aren't you telling me?
Well, all sorts. Today was a very bad day.
Why?
This is my favourite line from the last episode.
Oh, great. Now the baby's crying again. FML.
FML demon baby in the basement.
I have to go down. What? Don't say that like it's one that you were babysitting.
Yeah.
This was a ghost.
I have to go down there. Don't you dare, Tiffany. It's not safe. Go hide until I or the police get there.
I can't wait for the police. They're taking too long already. That's 20,000 cuts. Sorry, guys.
Apologies, Barnes. Honey, please stay put.
Mum, I'm freaking out here. I have to do something.
There's just ... There's so much you don't know.
Well, tell me. I don't understand what's going on. Tiffany there, very much the voice of the reader.
I didn't want you to know.
Know what?
What your dad did.
What did he do?
It's you again.
Oh, yeah, no, I had another of those images. How does he know this woman?
I don't know how they met, but ... They both regret it now. I think we should leave it there.
I think you should say one more line.
What happened is irreversible.
And that's the sort of cliffhanger that keeps us
hooked. This has been That's a Shame episode 12. Sorry for our drunk political opinions that ended up being self-defeating, but that's life.
That's us.
It's a complicated mess.
That's the
Right, Declan's left the car. I'll wrap this up, lads. See you next week. It's been a hell of a show. Say bye, Declan, as he re-enters.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. For the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder, my new home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. Necessity